Senators O'Laughlin, Luetkemeyer,
Aye.
Bean, Beck, Bratton, Brown, Berger, Moon, Mosley, Roberts, Williams.
We do have a quorum. First up will be Stephen Black, a Republican nominee to the Northwest Missouri State University Board of Regents. Senator Black, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair and committee, for being here. The answer is yes. I am the older. I know that's hard to tell as well. And he received the Bowman family genetics rather than black genetics. That's why we don't look the same. But it's a pleasure, truly a pleasure for me to introduce my brother to be a regent on Northwest Missouri State University Board. I did attend that school for 1 year, but living in Northwest Missouri, that's a university that our family is very close to. My brother graduated from there that year. I'm not going to state that year. And then I do remember all of his siblings. Dad took care of their college education with one rule. They had to attend the Northwest Missouri State University, then it was all taken care of. Otherwise, it was a problem. I still think you were wrong on Katie. You should have let her go to K-State like she wanted to. You were living in Kansas, but you made that choice. Steve spent several years in corporate America in production business, and he worked for Johnson Controls many of that time. He started in the battery plant in St. Joe and worked to the point of being corporate executive over the battery division, then flipped over to heating and air later in his career. And he's retired back home, farming with cows. So as our family has done, everybody moves back. And it's time for him to provide, I hope, knowledge and help the university in the great Northwest part of the state. Thank you.
We will try not to hold your relation to the senator against you in your confirmation. Any questions for this nominee? Senator Moon.
First name is Steve, correct?
Correct.
Do you have that dark humor? I mean black humor.
Yeah.
No, I'd like to get you to know just to compare. But what do you see as some of the most pressing needs of the university?
And you can hear me fine?
I can. Well, there's a green button that you
It's on.
push.
Okay. Well, one of the issues for me, Rusty talked about my family and me personally, and sometimes for justified reasons, the value proposition that's being questioned around secondary education, including colleges and universities, trade schools, that's taken a major hit over the last 5 or 10 years. And from my perspective, that value proposition is critically important for communities in our state, investing, in the current generation, the next generation, and ensuring that, the universities do a good job, just like the experience that I had.
Yeah, I guess I wouldn't disagree that there is value to an education. I have examples that I won't take time to share today of folks, some within my own family, who I'm not sure if it's their choice not to go, but they wouldn't have made it, but they did extremely well in business for themselves. And so I think is what I've perceived over the years that I've been in the legislature is that there's been a relief and pressure, I think, to try to push everybody toward a 4-year degree, and I think that's wise. What is your impression, looking from the outside in to this point, and what would you be looking for in forward thinking to either changing that thought process, or is there a dynamic in there that maybe I'm missing that could be used where we actually focus our attention on a group of kids who we think might be successful, not just looking at the SAT scores or the ACTs to see measure their success, but I guess where I'm getting at is I hope that it continues not to be a total driver to get everybody to say, look, you need a 4-year degree, because there's mounting debt that is incurred, and sometimes it's frustrating, even to the point of suicide for some.
Yes.
And so, tell me more about what your
You
thoughts
maybe
are.
misunderstood my comments, or I probably misspoke, but when I say post-secondary education in that investment, for example, I got 5 children. 4 of my daughters did graduate from Northwest. My son went to trade school in Kansas City. He's a journeyman electrician in Kansas City. So whether it's a 2-year degree, technical training, trade school training, or a 4-year degree, my point is that investment, depending on the individual and the goals, I think is critical. And it impacts communities and families in our state, both financially and then the social impact. My point is we need to keep that relevant and not give up on
Yeah.
it. And there's social status as well.
Yeah.
On the lower end of the economic scale, which our family was, it opened a lot of doors for people in our family getting
Well,
that education.
thank you for that clarification. I think you're right. I believe I understand where your mindset is, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
Any further questions for the nominee? Senator Mosley.
Can you explain to me what exactly the Board of Regents does?
I'm not on the board, so this may not be the best definition, but I think one of the key requirements, it is like the coach and has direct responsibility for helping Dr. Tatum and his staff set strategy. What are the issues? There's a lot of changes happening, not only in Missouri, but in the country, and I clearly want to see Northwest stay relevant in that process. Provides a critical resource in Northwest Missouri, but the Board of Regents is really helping. They're not really his direct boss, but in a way they are. We're helping him set strategy, drive accountability. What are we working on? Where do we need changes? Does it work? And then readjust. So helping him, that's a kind of a ramble, but helping him set strategy and drive change and make sure that university or that organization is relevant moving forward and serves the communities that it serves and serves the students, and make sure that they're getting what they need to get out of the institution so they can go on and contribute to our state.
And a lot of students, high school students, want to go to college, but they just can't afford to go. And a lot of times they are forced into having to take out student loans to try to better their lives, and then they're in a student loan debt. What ideas do you have to try to keep students from having to take out student loans? Because it's very pricey to try to pay those back.
Yes.
And hard to pay them back because a lot of times the jobs that you receive after college do not afford you to be able to pay that debt back. So what are your ideas on that? Or if you have any ideas.
Well, from my perspective, the price, the cost of getting an education, I think, is out of control. If you stack up student loan debt to put yourself through college, that becomes a significant issue once you get in the workforce. And I don't know if I have an answer for that. I do know a piece of that. I assume I come from business. And one of the things that I can help oversee or have input into at the Board of Regents is the cost control and cost accountability. So are the universities, are we trying to hold that cost down? What are the opportunities to hold that cost down so that doesn't happen? But as far as how you fund, that's probably something bigger than the Board of Regents, is how we create a funding mechanism where students walk out of there with a lot less debt than some of them do. But that's not a good thing. I agree.
Right. Would you be willing to look into providing scholarships for people like in the urban areas? And also, I feel like the C students need scholarships because a lot of times they are overlooked because people feel that they're not qualified for college. But in my opinion, you still are able to go to college and even thrive in college. Math was hard for me in high school, but when I got to college, I had a different type of teacher who went through math differently. He didn't skip steps. In high school, my math teacher skipped steps. I'm like, how you get from here to here? You skipped everything in the middle. But my college professor went through each and every step, so I did better in math in college than I did in high school, which is probably strange. But so I feel like people should take care of the C student as well. So would you be open to
Oh, I agree with
bringing
that.
scholarships for the C students
Absolutely,
as
I
well
agree
as
with that,
urban
yeah.
areas?
I agree
and
with that.
reaching out
Like
to
I said,
those
for me
areas.
personally, some cases, academic performance, but the other case, different income statuses for me. I mean, it's had a huge impact on my life. You know, unleashing a lot of opportunities that wouldn't have been there. So investing, whether you're not an A student or investing in a different economic class, I think the university in some cases provide a great opportunity to.
Yeah,
Yep.
appreciate that.
Any further questions for the nominee? Seeing none, thank you for your willingness to serve.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Congressman Blaine Luetkemeyer, Republican, to the University of Missouri Board of Curators, Senator Bernskoetter.
Where do you want us, Harrison? Thanks, Harrison. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, like the chairman said, I'm Mike Bernskoetter, here to present retired Congressman Blaine Luetkemeyer. Of all the people I've probably ever introduced, it's probably the one that doesn't need an introduction. But Congressman Luetkemeyer is, you know, he's grew up and lived in St. Elizabeth his whole life. He got a political science degree from Lincoln University here in town with a minor in business. He also, he was a state rep for a while. He was a banker in St. Elizabeth. He was director of tourism, and then he became our congressman, and he recently retired. And I appreciate him not wanting to sit around and watch Price is Right all day, and he still wants to be involved, and so I appreciate that. And you know, him and his beautiful wife Jackie have 3 children and 7 grandchildren, and much like the Bernskoetters, he even though he's related to our chairman of the committee, they don't see each other at Christmas and Easter. They're not that closely related, but they are related, and hopefully you all agree with me that he would make a great addition to the MU Board of Curators, and he'd be happy to answer any questions.
Congressman, thank you for being here. Thank you for your willingness to serve. Yes, as was noted, the Congressman and I are related, but somewhat distantly. And when we have family reunions in mid-Missouri, there's like 900 people that show up. We're from a big Catholic family, and it's like being named Smith when you're named Luetkemeyer in mid-Missouri. So we had an opportunity to chat briefly in my office yesterday, and you had talked about kind of one of your passions, which was the research reactor at MU's campus, which I know you were very instrumental in getting federal funding, and we hope to see some additional state funding this year. I just wanted to see if you could talk a little bit to the committee about the importance of that project at Mizzou's campus and sort of your vision for that.
Sure. Thank you, Senator, and thank Senator Bernskoetter for his warm welcome this morning, and thank you for all the visits that we were able to get yesterday. I know we were able to get to touch a lot of you, and we appreciate your willingness to listen to our concerns, comments, and the warm greetings that you gave me as we went around. I've known Dr. Choi President Choi for a long time, and we work with he and the university very closely when we were in D.C. to bring home a lot of dollars for research, for the Ag Department especially. But the nuclear reactor is a real interest of mine, real passion of mine, from the standpoint that that particular existing nuclear reactor is at its lifespan's end right now. And I think they're going to refurbish it down the road. But we need to get another one in there and probably double the size, if I'm not mistaken, with the new one. Because about 90-95% of all the radiated drugs in the world come out of that reactor to help treat cancer. And I think that is, to me, as a political person, a leader at one time, and all of you today, one of the things that impresses me is, and important to me, is that we make a difference in people's lives. What better project can you support than to support that to make a difference in people's lives. You have loved ones who have used the radiated drugs before. You know this is really, really important to you and your family. So to me, this is a no-brainer when we worked with it. And Dr. Choi, I'm excited about the opportunity to work with him because I think he is a fantastic administrator who has a really good grasp of the importance of this project, has good people around him on this project, and we're looking forward to working with him and continue his leadership as this project goes forward.
For those comments. I know the committee, most of the members that I've talked to, we're very grateful for President Choi's leadership as well at the university, and good to hear that one of the hopefully new curators shares that view of President Choi. Any questions for the nominee? Senator Moon.
I'm grateful, Congressman, that you talked about the reactor a little bit. Tell me if I'm mistaken. I remember in our conversation briefly, we talked about that same reactor, I think, can be used for other processes, like identifying artifacts and giving information that might be critical. Am I thinking right, or was I?
No, that's correct.
incorrect?
There's a lot of other uses for reactivity type of research, but this particular reactor is geared toward that, but that doesn't mean they don't do other things with it.
Right.
There's a lot of other research projects, as I mentioned, that come into the university, and there's businesses that spin off from that. So it's not that it just sits there and you do some experiments. They actually have an incubator there close by that actually spins off some of the research or drugs that they find, that they discover that actually work, and they go from there, whether it's a process that they will go through or whether it's the drug itself.
Good. Thanks for refreshing my memory.
No, your question. Thank you.
Senator Bean.
Well, Congressman, once again, thank you for your hard work on that project. That's something that's very near and dear to me, is keeping that AAU accreditation. So once again, thank you for that. And as a student at MU, in the welding class, we would take samples to that reactor, and they were actually doing samples of looking at NASA's wells, and, well, mine didn't compare to NASA's wells, I'll tell you, but it was just interesting to see the various types of work they were doing at that. So once again, just want to say thank you for your willingness to serve. Thank you for that, the hard work on that project, and look forward to the future.
Thank you for your comments. When I was going around trying to get those dollars for that project, it was kind of a no-brainer when you started sitting down across the table from my colleagues and saying, hey, this is what this reactor has been doing. We want to build a new one that can continue this work and help you and your family live a better life. And it was automatic. I mean, we got no pushback at all from either side of the aisle on any sort of requests that we made with regards to the reactor. It's everybody understands the importance of this, and we want to continue to enhance that project.
Like I said, I don't think people realize how many things that revolves around that reactor, and then many, many projects. But once again, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Senator Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Great visiting with you yesterday. I just wanted to kind of reiterate, I think it's so important for the committee to also hear some of the things we discussed, and that's the system. One of the institutions we talked about was the University of Missouri St. Louis. As we know, they've had some really exciting things happen over the past couple of years. They're reimagining their South Campus, which is going to create a lot of synergy, and I'm looking forward to hosting you there at some point in the future. And then also they're in the process of starting up an engineering program, meaning that UMSL would be the only public research institution on the eastern side of the state that has an engineering program, considering there is a shortage, and St. Louis is a contributor to the GDP, as you've known as a member of Congress. I'd like to just kind of for you to reshare your thoughts pertaining to maybe UMSL, UMKC, some of the other universities outside of Columbia in the system.
Well, I think the system itself is very important because it's the flagship university with the system that can be the leader for all of the institutions. One thing about having been around here so long, I've got a lot of friends and acquaintances, and so I was waiting to meet Mr. Cedars this morning, and along comes one of my old colleagues who now is from the area, who he and his whole family went to UMSL. So he was twisting my arm pretty heavy this morning on that as well. But No, I think, I think as we talked yesterday, there's going to be a demographic problem in this state, and it's going to take leadership, I think, to make sure that everybody survives, because I think there's going to be a lot of four-year schools go under. From my discussions, excuse me, I got some allergy problems this morning. From my discussions with all my higher education schools in my district, they're very concerned about this. And we want to make sure that we protect all of these institutions, make sure there's plans in place to be able to survive, make sure that the revenues are there, make sure that the educational opportunities are there for the kids across the system. And so I think we need to find ways to attract people, not only from Missouri to our institutions and keep them here, but maybe from other places as well. But I think, we have a demographic problem that I think they all recognize, and they're all concerned about it. I think you are going to see very shortly, the next 5 years, a rearrangement of some of the higher ed institutions in this state and around the country. We need to make sure that we're positioned as a system to be able to deal with that issue. And I think in my discussions with President Choi and some of the other presidents around the state and my district, they get it. They understand there's a problem. They're looking for solutions. But I think that's where you start. You got to recognize there's a problem and get busy and start fixing it.
Yeah, thank you for that. And last little thing, we have a couple members on the committee that also serves on the Senate Appropriations Committee. So as a Lincoln University alum, I think it's safe to say being one of the only 2 land grant institutions in the state that land grant funding is important and could help not only the University of Missouri, but also Lincoln University.
Well, thank you for that plug. But yes, Dr. Mosley and I are very close friends, and he's a great guy. It was in my district, so we spent a lot of time with him after I managed to get out of Lincoln. But no, it is one of the land grant schools, and it's very important. It has a very important mission, and I think there's an example between Lincoln and Mizzou with regards to agricultural research and our agricultural programs. They have joined together to be able to do a better job for both universities with these programs. And I think that's a model that a lot of schools could use to be able to partner with other schools to be able to have a program or a whole section of your school that actually is working with another school that could actually enhance the ability of folks more locally to stay there and get the same access to the programs and the teaching and the research that goes on. So, Lincoln is a special place in my heart. But
I figured I'll throw that out there, and if you don't mind, maybe come back and sign a couple baseballs for us.
Well, the baseball's worth a whole lot more than my signature will be on there. I assure you, Senator.
Thank you, Congressman. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Any further questions for the nominee? Senator Mosley.
Hello again.
Yes, Senator Mosley.
So how distant of a relative are you two?
I'm
So
sorry?
how distant of relatives are you?
Well, I think your grandfather was a brother to my grandfather. Is that right?
Oh, Lordy.
Yes, we're kind of testifying here. So your grandfather and my great-grandfather were brothers.
Okay.
I think is
There we
the
go.
story. So.
Okay.
Okay.
So maybe one day
You have to
all
understand that the two Luetkemeyer came over back in the 1870s. One had 17 kids and one had 14 kids. From those two guys, all Luetkemeyers in Missouri are all related from those two guys.
Okay. Well, maybe one day you all.
And I tell everybody, claim them all as long as they're not in jail.
Maybe one day you all will have Christmas together anyway.
There you go.
So I want to ask you a similar question. What is the purpose of the curators? What do you all do?
Well, I've always believed that the Board of Curators or Board of Directors is there to set policy, oversee and set direction for the administration that they hire. We're in charge of hiring and firing the administration. I think you find the best person you can, you empower them, and you give them direction, and you turn them loose. And if they're not doing a good job, you replace them or get them back in line. But if they're doing a good job, you leave them alone. And you empower them some more because that's what you want. You want somebody who can do the job, who is not hamstrung, who can produce results, and bring ideas to you, the board, to be able to further, in this situation, the university's mission, the university's activities, whatever they may be. as I stated, we've got a lot of issues I think that are going to be coming up in the next several years. One of them is a demographic problem that's going to be there. It's not anything that's wrong with the system. It's something that's there with our culture. So we have to figure out how to deal with it. MU as a whole is, their enrollment is increasing, but doesn't mean that we don't need to, as a university system, to be looking out for everybody else. Again, I think the system is in a leadership position, and leaders look out for everybody else as well. I think we have, each school has a mission. When I was, and I think somebody mentioned a while ago the trade schools. When I was in office, my focus has always been on the trade schools and the tech school training, because for too long that was ignored. For too long, nobody paid attention to the fact that not every kid needs to go to a four-year school. Not every kid needs a four-year degree. Some children don't like school. Some kids have a tough time taking tests. And sometimes they're more mechanically in mind. They'd rather be a mechanic or a welder or whatever. And they can make just as much money doing that at a tech school or trade school as they can go into a four-year school and getting some other kind of degree they don't really want. So I think my focus has always been, when I've gone out and talked to the schools, high schools as well as trade schools as well as four-year schools, and we've got Lynn Technical College, State Tech here just down the road, one of the top technical school in the country. It's growing by leaps and bounds. Why? Because people are recognizing finally the importance of a technical education. So I think I've always stressed with the high schools, get with your local businesses, find out what they need from the standpoint of skills that the students who leave your school can then utilize in their businesses, so that they can be a productive member of society, so they can get them a job, so they can make a living for their family. Work with them. And a lot of businesses have taken that to heart. Not that I've got the credit for all this, because I think a lot of schools finally got it. The guidance counselors are starting to talk more and lay out more options for the students, realizing that some students can go the tech route, trade route, and be just as successful in life as anywhere else. And as a result, I think we're seeing this surge in the tech school, trade school type of education. So I think there's a place for everybody, and I think Mizzou as the flagship university and the system that they have with the three other schools can be the leader in providing the resources, the planning, the structure to make this all happen.
So,
long answer to your short question, I apologize, but I think there's just a lot to your question, Senator.
so same as I asked the other guy. As far as urban areas and the C student, are you going to look into providing scholarships in those areas where they're financially struggling to make it and do want to go to college, do want to go to a four-year college, but they don't have the finances? And again, we don't want people to keep taking out student loans that they can't afford to pay back.
We talked about that yesterday, and I told you, I worked my way through school, and my kids worked their way through school. Doesn't seem like a lot of kids today want to do the work to go through school. They'd rather get a loan and then
Like I said yesterday, it's hard. Some people can't handle working and going to school at the same time. It's
I understand
not
that. I
easy
think
thing to do.
there are other
'cause you need
sources,
sleep.
though. Sometimes you can qualify for the Pell grants. You can Mizzou has, I think, a land grant scholarship where you can, if you qualify for the Pell, you can also qualify for this particular grant. To me, what can happen and what needs to happen is you partner with a business. Let's say you have a business that's looking for a particular, pick an occupation, and they're looking for particular students, a type of student, an engineer, for instance. There's scholarships for engineers, scholarships for dentists, scholarships for doctors, or scholarships for accountants, or scholarships for teachers. All you have to do is go look for a lot of those. I know, for instance, in my little county of Miller County, there's a couple of different scholarships that are available at the local level for people from Miller County. They're not available for people from other counties, but they're available for us. So those are the places that if you have a good guidance counselor who knows what they're doing, they can sit there and help you go through this myriad of different kinds of financing for all of the different folks that are out there. So
Yeah.
I think you bring up a good point. If we're going to attract everybody to a school of some kind, we need to find a way to help them finance it. I'll stop right there. I can keep going.
A lot of times in the urban areas, the guidance counselors don't do a good job of letting kids know about scholarships. So, and by the time they do get accepted to these universities, it's too late to even apply for scholarships. So maybe you all can think about changing deadlines on scholarships, and also those students that reach out, let them know about the scholarships that you all have, and maybe perhaps providing them someone to help them get through the application process, because that's sometimes the problem as well, or even people not even knowing how to do the FAFSA. So maybe you all can
Yeah.
have something for that
No, those
as
are
well.
good ideas.
Back to the nuclear plant. What do you say to those people that say that there are cures already out here for cancer, but because of the money making that the drug people are getting, that they don't let us
Well-
know about these cures that are out there and are
There's
much-
always improvements in the cures, number one. And number two, there's always a way to continue to find better detectors of cancer. You know, one of the things that the zoo was doing quite some time ago already was some kind of nanotechnology, which I am not the guy to explain this to you, but basically what it is they will radiate some kind of a particle that will attach itself to the cancer cell. And then you, underneath a microscope, will see, as you view the blood flowing in somebody's veins, you will see how much cancer is in that person's body by the little attachment of the radioactive nanoparticle, whatever it is, to the cancer cell. And you can see if the body if is free of cancer or if it still has cancer. And then if it goes someplace and sets, you can find out exactly where the cancer is. I mean, not only do you find the drugs and find improvements on the drugs, you can find ways to research and prevent cancers as well, or find them more quickly. So I think we never are satisfied with the drugs that we have. I don't think we need to continue to improve on it. Maybe we can find a way that you would have less of a reaction to the drug. Instead of losing your hair, there's no reaction to it whatsoever. There's ways to refine and improve the drugs. There's ways to refine and improve the treatment plans. Maybe we can find a way to put 2 or 3 drugs together that will be helpful, or sequence them in a way that's better. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a researcher. But I think that, but I do know some of the researchers there at the university and who utilize this reactor. These are really smart people. I can't hardly hold their briefcase, much less talk about what they do. But they understand how we can maximize this facility to be able to improve our lives and protect our loved ones from the scourge of cancer.
But do you think there are cures out there that we just don't know about?
Oh, I think so. I think it's a matter of, there's, I'm not a biology expert either here, but I think you go all the way back to whether somebody has a predilection to being able to, become cancerous for some reason whatsoever. You go into the genes, you find out whether there's a gene in your body that makes you more susceptible to cancer or more liable to have cancer. I can guess here all day, Senator, but I think the bottom line is we've got a facility there that we can utilize to help mankind, and I think that's what we need to be looking out for.
Any further questions for the nominee? Senator Beck.
I'm not trying to prolong this. So first off, I want to sorry that I missed our meeting yesterday. I had quite a few things going on. But as you touched on numerous subjects today, and I think you're highly qualified to do this, but I'm going to ask you some bigger picture items because you touched on them in general. One, you mentioned demographics of the state. We are becoming an older state, a lot less kids. So there's going to have to be not only a recruitment process from within, but also probably outside the borders. And the question I have on that is, and you said the alignment and schools going away, and that probably will happen. My question to you is it's not, to me, it's not really necessarily getting them in the university or getting the kids there. It's keeping them afterwards. it's keeping them in the state. And what do you see as bigger, and you probably can't answer this question, but I think it needs to be a strategy through the university, business, labor, whatever the case may be in general, to keep these younger people that are not coming to Missouri. They're leaving the state. Even the ones that are homegrown are leaving here for other opportunities or different areas or whatever the case may be. So I know this is a big question, but I think it's the bigger, actually, it's the harder question to answer that readdresses the demographic issue, right? So it actually is proactive to the demographics changing to an older state and bring us back to being where people want to come, where young people want to be.
Yeah, it's a great question. I
You
really
got
don't.
3 minutes to answer that question.
Well, I think it's hard. It's hard to get people to stay wherever the jobs are not. I mean, you have to have the business here that can produce the job that people can utilize. And I've had discussions with the dean of the engineering school, and this is a really, really sad story. But he said about 50% of the kids, now this is a few years ago, but I'm sure it's probably not far off yet today, but half the kids in the engineering school are not from the United States. And only about 20% of the kids that are in the postgraduate programs are from the United States. So he said, we have a real problem because we're educating engineers who are going to go back home and compete against us, whether it's developing new drugs, new energy situations, new defense things. We're educating the rest of the world's engineers who can compete against us. We have to find a way to attract our own people into this field so that we can continue to compete. And so that's a dilemma. I don't have a good answer for you, Senator, but I understand the problem. I've heard the problem before. I think the key is working with businesses within the state who want to hire the students from the state and find a way to have an environment, which is what I guess your jobs all are, and the governors provide a business environment to attract business to our state so there's a place for our kids when they're educated to actually have a job in our state.
No, I appreciate that answer. And first off, I'm a big supporter of the reactor and increasing that because, I'm a pipe fitter by trade. That's a lot of good skill work in that end of it, in the starting end, but also what you can do as far as research and cancer studies and all the going forward. So I'm definitely supportive of that. And you mentioned the trade schools, and this is what I always caution people on, is we have a tendency, whether it's in this country or the state or whatever, to always go full bore in one direction and forget about the engineers and forget about the, and we go full tilt trade school. Like I didn't go to a trade school. I went for a little bit, but I went to an apprenticeship, which I strongly believe in all those things that, where your education gets paid for, and they're 100% trade schools are great. But I think when you put so much emphasis on going that way, and then you leave off emphasis, on the engineers and all the people that we need to have here to actually have those trades work and have our economy work. I just always caution people that we have to have more of a balanced approach, and I get it. I understand that, school's not for everybody. Totally understand that. My son was that way, and he's successful and he's in a trade too. So no, but that's, I think it's important that we don't go too far in one direction. And we always have a tendency to do that. It seems like the pendulum always swings one way, and then it comes back. You think it's going to stop here, but it goes back the other direction, and it never just stays in the middle. So I don't know if that's a question or just a comment, but
Well, I will agree with your comment. I think the pendulum does swing back and forth, and sometimes it swings too far.
yeah.
This is the part that I like about President Choi. He's going to fight to make sure the pendulum doesn't swing too far the other way and to the detriment of the university.
The other question, and this is actually for Senator Bean. Every farmer I've ever met is always a welder. Thank you.
But are they a good welder? I can weld everything but the crack of dawn. How's that? So, anyway, any other questions? Thank you for your willingness to serve.
Thank you,
sir.
everybody. Appreciate it.
Next up is Lynn Portell, the Washington County Commissioner, Senator Henderson. Senator, please proceed.
For the record, Mike Henderson, State Senator from the 3rd Senatorial District, and it's my pleasure today to bring to you Lynn Portell for our Washington County Commissioner. Mr. Portell is a retired utility professional with more than 3 decades of experience at Arkansas Power and Light, now Ameren, such as a lineman, senior lineman, and troubleman. Mr. Porter has also had several leadership roles, a lifelong resident of Washington County. He has been actively involved in the community, serving as board president of Pleasant Hill Christian Church for several years. Mr. Portell and his wife, Jana, live on a small farm outside of Potosi, as a proud father and grandfather. And I can honestly tell the committee that everybody I talked to from Washington County were calling me to say, this is the man we need as the appointed county commissioner.
Thank you, sir. So you were a lineman?
Yes, sir.
During the 2009 ice storm, I worked alongside a lot of linemen, pulled them through the.
Oh, yeah.
It was a mess. So I have a tremendous amount of respect. But they all laughed at me because when we got to live wire, I took off.
Yeah,
So-
yeah, we appreciate all the help when you get out like that with the big tractors and different things to get into the position is sometimes difficult. That's sometimes more of a task than actual work. So,
Well, like I say, I appreciate your work, and I will
Thank
tell
you.
you they made a lot of fun of me because the one thing I was good at was holding that plunge bob up or whatever to make sure
Yeah,
the pole was straight.
yeah.
So, any questions for this witness or this witness's nominee? So, anyway, thank you for your willingness to serve.
thank you.
So this concludes the hearing. I would like to make a motion that we enter executive session. Do I have a second? Have a second. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, no. We are in executive session. I now move that we roll all 3 nominees into one slate. Do I have a second? I have a second. Any discussion on this motion? Seeing none, no more discussion. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. We now have the slate before us. I would move that we do pass the slate out of committee. Do I have a second? Have a second. Is there any discussion on this motion? Hearing none. Will, would you please call the roll?
Senators O'Laughlin, Luetkemeyer, Bean,
Aye.
Beck, Bratton, Brown, Berger, Moon, Mosley, Roberts, Williams.
By your vote of 8-1, we move to pass. I now make a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second? All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, no. We are adjourned. Thank you.